it is more dangerous to be black in America. It's both more dangerous because of crime, and which is the Chicago story, but it is more dangerous in that they're substantially more likely to end up in a situation where the police don't respect you and where you could easily get killed. And I think sometimes for whites it's difficult to appreciate how real that is. I mean, how it's an everyday danger.
That was former Speaker of the House and maybe, with any luck, future vice presidential candidate Newt Gingrich, who joins us on the phone now. Speaker Gingrich, welcome back to the program.
Well, it's always great to be with you, and we're certainly living in a period of rapidly changing events.
We certainly are. Now, so what is it you were trying to tell white people about your understanding of the Black Lives Matter movement?
Well, I think, and this is a little bit complicated, but let me start with something which I have been told by people like Congressman J.C. Watts, who is also a All-American quarterback at Oklahoma, people like Colin Powell, who's certainly reasonably famous in his own right, that there is still a residual racism that is peculiar to being African American. It's people who are very famous who will tell you about everything from going to a restaurant where it just takes a little bit longer for people to bring them water or notice them or pay attention to them, to the notion that, and J.C. Watts tells a story of driving a brand new Ford Explorer and being rousted by two local sheriff's deputies driving around Oklahoma and getting out of his car and saying, you know, you guys realize I am your congressman? And they just automatically assume you have this guy, you know, this black guy in their county driving this brand new car. They thought they'd stop him and see what he was doing. Well, very few white people have that feeling. One of the people I'm closest to tells the story of riding in southern Alabama with somebody who's African American, and they get pulled over, and it's in early evening, and the guy says, "Put your hands out the window." And he says, "What?" He says, "Put your hands out the window. I want them to see that there's somebody white in the car." Now, you and I would never think of that. And so I do think it's important to understand when you look at the cases in Baton Rouge and in Minneapolis, how that plays out in terms of, you know, I've had very, very successful Yale graduate, you know, attorneys tell me that they try to teach their children, be very careful. If the police approach you, you know, be very cautious, understand how dangerous it could be, don't be a smart aleck, etc. In a way that white parents just wouldn't. I mean, it wouldn't occur to them that you could have a problem. So I think that's a piece of it. And then second, of course, as Rudy Giuliani has pointed out, where we have to be very straightforward and where I think we have to have the courage to go into the neighborhoods. You know, most African Americans who are killed are not killed by cops. They're killed by other African Americans. And we have a huge problem with predators in this country who go out and willfully use violence and very often kill innocent people, including 5- and 6-year-old kids. And Chicago in particular, the home of Barack Obama, the birthplace of Hillary Clinton, is a disaster. 2 weekends ago, they were averaging 2 shootings every hour. Now,
but doesn't that explain
that's a parallel
why?
Problem.
But doesn't that partially explain why young African American males are greeted by wary, suspicious, maybe even paranoid police officers?
Sure. So you have both sides of the equation. We have to absolutely defend the police in situations like Dallas. You cannot allow any kind of aggression, and I think we should be much tougher on organizations or people who use language advocating violence towards the police, including in music and including in art, et cetera. We need to be clear. The police are domestically the equivalent of the military overseas. They are putting their lives on the line. So I'm very pro-police. At the same time, we have to recognize that there is a latent problem, and that, yes, the whole danger has increased in the sense that people, the policemen in particular, have to approach people with a sense of fear. because you can't tell if somebody's going to try to harm you. And I think in that sense, we have to recognize that that's true. But it's also true that we have to protect the innocent from the power of the state. And that you do have occasions when you see somebody who's been shot, 16 times, you have to ask yourself, what was that all about? And why did that make sense? And that's why I think there is, this is a national conversation we need to have. And it's not a simple one. It's not, it's not A or B. It's in fact got different pieces of it all set around.
Well, when people see stories like Walter Scott in South Carolina or Laquan McDonald in Chicago, where they are shot by cops offering no threat, in fact, running away, in one case shot in the back, they recognize that as a crime, and those officers are on trial and or about to be in prison and maybe even face a death penalty. But police officers, according to Heather McDonald writing in the Wall Street Journal, are killed by blacks at a rate 2.5 times higher than the rate at which blacks are killed by police. So doesn't that explain why it is that young black males encounter cops who act differently towards them than they would towards a white person?
Sure, that's part of it. And part of that involves dealing with the endemic problem of violence in neighborhoods. I mean, if you have somebody out there who is engaged in drive-by shootings and engaged in random violence, you create an environment where obviously the police are going to be very tense. On the other hand, you also create an environment where the neighborhood is defenseless. I mean, there was a story recently about a neighborhood in Baltimore, which is like a war zone. You have stories about South Side Chicago, where to have a cookout outside, you have to be wary, almost as though you were in Baghdad or you were in Afghanistan, because you don't know when somebody's going to drive by and shoot at somebody else, and by the way, hit your child in the process. And all I'm saying is we need to be aware of both of these. We need to solve both of them. We need to protect the police and insist on respect for the police. And there I'm with Giuliani. At the same time, we have to recognize that there are legitimate concerns people have in situations where a totally innocent person gets hit. And you're right. I mean, in most but not all of these cases, you do in fact have justice done.
I'm going to run out of time here in a minute, so I can't let you go without digressing.
Okay.
Well, first of all, just if I can ask you, Donald Trump has been relatively quiet lately, and his statement on this was, I'll play it for the audience later, but it was well thought out, sober, and quite reasoned, which appears to be Donald Trump being a little more disciplined about his public statements. And I'm also curious about where do you think things stand in his choosing a running mate?
No, I think that he will make a decision probably Wednesday or Thursday this week. I mean, ideally they should announce it on Friday so that it dominates the weekend going into the convention. And I think he's looking at 4 or 5 people, and has honestly not made his mind up, and probably won't until Wednesday or Thursday. So that's a work in progress. And clearly, Klitz and I are very aware that we are in a sense part of it, because we are we've been vetted, and we've talked with various people in the campaign, and I went out to Cincinnati with him to jointly give a speech and what have you. And so we'll find out. But we're as ignorant of the final outcome as anybody else.
Do you want it?
I'd be willing to do it under some circumstances if we talk it through. But we also have a very exciting life, and we're doing between books and movies and what have you. Klitz and I staying pretty busy. And as a citizen, I'm going to try to help elect Donald Trump, whether it's as a volunteer or whether it's on the ticket.
Well, Speaker Gingrich, can I put it this way? I have stated my preference for you, so I hope that if and when you get the nomination, you will still come back here on occasion.
Of course. How could I ever turn you down?
Thank you very much. Speaker Newt Gingrich, appreciate it very much. Thank you for your time.